Today, live from the Pinecrest Inn, it's the Smylie Show. So long, everybody.
This is the Smylie Show.
The first event of the PGA Tour season, the Sony Open at
Feels
Waialae.
weird.
It feels a little bit weird. It feels a little bit weird skipping out on the Century. We'll hear later in the show from Mark Rolfing. Help me with the title here. Is Mr. Golf Hawaii? Is that an app's title? I think that might even be his email. I don't want to give that out to the audience.
King of Hawaii.
King of Hawaii. Fantastic. He'll get us dialed in on just what's going on there and just the really the sad possibility that we're going to lose not one but both events on the PGA Tour calendar in Hawaii. But we at least have one this year. And while the Century often is the one with greater fanfare, it is, it's been the Tournament of Champions in the past. It is a big, beautiful Core Crenshaw ballpark, stunning views. Waialae has an amazing history that dates all the way back to one of America's original architectural minds, Seth Raynor. Many people, Seth Raynor and C.B. McDonald worked together in really bringing golf from Scotland over to the United States and revolutionizing golf design in this sort of golden era of architecture that ranged from maybe like the early 1900s, 1910s to the mid 1930s. So with that said, Smylie, I got a few fun facts for you. This is actually, I found this cool. This was a Jeff Eisenband write-up on the PGA Tour website back in 2022. And Jeff's now a PGA Tour live broadcaster. So look at how far we've come in that sense as well. So Jeff writes here, Seth Raynor designed the first hole. It's now a 480-yard par 4 with the road hole from the old course in St. Andrews in mind. So just like the 17th in Scotland, it's got that approach shot into a shallow green with a deep bunker guarding in front. Number 7 at Waialae has some similarities to the 6th National Golf Links of America, which is one of C.B. McDonald's, if not one of his trademark courses, perhaps his trademark course. And then there's the par 3 17th at Waialae employs a Redan-style green that's borrowed from North Berwick in Scotland, a place you and I both share a love for, an affection for. So to me, that's where I feel like it's kind of cool to start. You've been on the ground. Actually, I should say you've been on the ground and in the sea at Waialae. You were once in a kayak out there at the Sony Open, seeing this property.
And teed it up. Played Sony multiple times. And what many people don't know is that on that first hole, which we described, I actually did not know that the road hole was the hole that was copied in that. But there's a backyard on that first hole, off the tee to the right at about 300 yards. I've had a golf ball end up in that backyard and had to re-tee off of that tee. It's a very difficult first hole. And when we look at maybe some of the most difficult starting holes on the PGA Tour, Sony's at Waialae, that first hole has got some meat to it. But it's a golf course that many folks have fallen in love with, many tour players. Bermuda, wall to wall. So a lot of guys that grew up in the South or play in Florida love going to this place. It's old school in nature. It's got a fun start to it, and the fact that it feels like in so many places in the game of golf that technology has outgrown golf courses. And you might be able to argue that here, but it still feels like it stands up a little bit more than other golf courses. They got no room to grow this thing, add distance, but with the nature of the dog legs and really good course design, it makes it for, I think, a course that these guys look forward to playing every year.
I love that at St. Andrews, you have a big hotel, in the town of St. Andrews on the right.
I've never played St. Andrews, so I haven't hit a ball out of bounds there yet.
Waialae, you've got someone's backyard that Smylie discovered. It truly is. It's a classic. For all the reasons you named, and it's one that is, this year especially. The names, you look at the field list and you're coming off usually the week before with a list of champions and winners from the previous year, and it can take a dip. But I've just been looking through the field this week, Smylie, and there are a lot of guys who have won here previously, a lot of guys who were in great form finishing this last year. So I just love to kind of dive into, maybe the conditions this week, who you like, guys that could really kickstart a year, because the field list, and I've pulled a list that is ranked in order of data golf rankings. You got Ben Griffin, Russell Henley, JJ Spawn, Robert McIntyre, Hideki Matsuyama, Keegan Bradley. You got names like Harry Hall, a guy you really have picked to maybe take a big uptick this year as one of the better putters in the game. I'm thinking we could get some fireworks here this first week of the PGA Tour to get us rolling into the season.
I couldn't agree more. And if you look at, let's see, over the last like 8 years, there have been 5 playoffs. Let's see if I got that number right. Actually, 6 playoffs. So this is a course that really has come down to the wire. You've seen some incredible shots on that 18th hole. I can think of the Hideki Matsuyama shot that he hit basically straight into the sun, had no idea where it went. And if he did knew where it went, he probably would dropped his club or taken a hand off of it. But because he couldn't see it, of course, this ball ends up to like 3 feet, ends up winning the golf tournament in a playoff. But it's a course. You're right. I think there's many of those guys that you just mentioned. I like them all. I think they're all really good ball strikers, have control of your ball. It's a course that really requires accuracy off the tee. When you start hitting it in the rough and having bad angles into some of these greens, it makes it to where you feel like you're playing for pars. But looking at the weather forecast, I think that's kind of the first place you want to start when you look at a golf course like this, because the only protection that it has is that you need the wind to blow a little bit. And if the wind doesn't blow, you can really go and take it deep on this golf course. But if you happen to get a bunch of rain too, and it's super soft, then it just becomes a little easier. And you've seen this event get up into the mid 20s, but you've also seen this event be, in the low teens. But I expect, looking at this weather forecast, seeing that they're getting some thunderstorms on Wednesday, that we're probably going to see some low scores. So you're going to probably have to go out and shoot 5 under a day would be the goal for these guys. You want to get off to a good start. And there's plenty of guys. I mean, Russell Henley plays good here every year. There's plenty of really good players that are going to be here.
Talk to me about, if it does indeed rain, and you mentioned wall-to-wall Bermuda, what are the conditions around the green for pitching? Is it a situation where you can get some kind of funky lies, and obviously not dormant, it's warm year-round in Hawaii, but I guess the last tour event, even though it's unofficial, that we see of the year is down in Albany, where you can get some really difficult pitching conditions off of Bermuda down there. Also tropical, climate. What do you see around the green at Waialae?
Oh, you definitely get some Bermuda rough. It's not crazy deep, this Bermuda rough, but definitely can be a little fluffy and tough to judge at times. But really, the greens sometimes will either sit up or the bunkers will be very deep. So the greens, for the most part, they're going to be tucking some hole locations, but also these bunkers that are right off the corner of these greens will be very, very deep. So you have to bring some very, very strong bunker play if you're going to be missing greens to be able to save pars at this golf course. But you have to take care of the 2 par 5s, the 9th hole and the 18th hole. The 9th hole can be as short as a driver 9-iron for some of these long players if it's firm. It's a very narrow tee shot, but one of which you hit the fairway, you're thinking eagle every single time. But the 18th hole is one where you stand up there and you try to figure out how you can hit the highest hook driver that you've ever hit in your life. Or you could try to play it out the correct way to play the hole, which might be just hitting a 3-wood straight away to a very, very narrow fairway that hits maybe less than 50% of the time from an accuracy standpoint for the field. But a lot of times in this day and age, you see these bombers try to take advantage of length. They see that it's an advantage to be as close as you can to the hole. So you see plenty of high hooks on this hole. But for the most part, that's where you got to make some birdies on those par 5s. And then if you drive it into the fairways on the par 4s, you're going to be faced with a bunch of wedges, maybe outside of that first hole where it's probably the longest par 4 on the golf course.
You mentioned all those playoffs, and I love so much that you get to see the 18th as the final hole in regulation, and then they play the 18th twice in the playoff, and they'll jump to 10 from there. But to see the 18th with that risk-reward trade-off 3 times in a row, that sort of, as you mentioned, that shot shape, that hook shot you've got. Yeah,
10's the other one you need to take care of too. That's one, drivable par 4. It's a built-up green, so that's kind of the nature of this golf course. If you didn't know it was Seth Raynor, you'd feel like it had Donald Ross type of vibes to it, feeling like,
which makes sense,
some runoff areas in some spots, but really, really fun golf course. And you see a lot of the same guys play well here year after year.
It's the truth. I mean, it's so funny. We were compiling this rundown, and I'm going through, and you're seeing a lot of entrants of guys that are obviously back in the field because they play well there. And it is, you either play really good here seemingly, or you just don't play good here. There are a couple of 3 cut in a row missers where I'm like, I wonder if maybe you take this one off and just head straight to the down to the Amex.
And I'll tell you why too, because this golf course, it can play tricks on your mind as far as how conservative and how aggressive you play off the tee. So when you have these dog legs, sometimes, like for example, the 13th hole, par 4, in which you're looking at your yardage book and you see that it's about a 295 to 300 yard carry over the corner of the dog leg or corner of the bunker. And you're sitting there thinking, gosh, if I don't carry this bunker, it's potentially going to be in a position where I have no angle and having to play to the front right part of the green. Or, if I have a little bit of helping wind and I could take it left of the bunker and try to take it over the dog leg, which you see a lot of these long players try to do. And if they pull it off and they hit the fairway, it turns into a very easy birdie. But if they happen to yank the drive and be in the rough and have no angle into a shallow green, all of a sudden you're thinking, gosh, how can I even get this on the green and make a par? So you find yourself thinking, should I play this aggressively or should I play it conservatively? And I think one good example of a player last year who played very aggressively off the tee was Steven Jaeger. And Steven Jaeger was very close to winning this golf tournament. And if you remember, he ran into a problem of being too aggressive down the stretch. And for the most part, that's the reason why he was in the lead was how aggressively he was playing off the tee, and it was working out for him because he was driving it in in areas in which he could either get it up and down out of the rough or take advantage of it from the fairway. But he hits it out of bounds on the 16th hole with driver, which you see some players hit 3-iron off that tee. You see some 3-woods. You'll see some drivers. It just is a crapshoot whether you actually can fit it in a 10-yard wide area with the driver. But he missed the fairway and out of bounds on 16 and then gets up to 18 and plays conservatively and hits a 3-wood and hits it in the bunker and winds up not making a birdie and missing out on the playoff. And so I just find it interesting in a golf course where you can find yourself getting in between. It's important to have a game plan because sometimes you can run into situations where, oh gosh, I'm about to win the golf tournament. Should I change my strategy of how I've played this hole throughout the week? And Steven didn't. He stuck to his guns and maybe got to 18. And I still felt like that was the wrong decision, not hitting driver. But it cost him in the end.
There are 3 names in this field that intrigue me greatly heading into the week. And I love to kind of talk about those guys as we kind of wrap our discussion here on the Sony, moving to some other big news items in the world of golf. So the first you've already mentioned, Hideki Matsuyama, because we talked, as we were sort of wrapping up the 2025 year about what a strange year it was for him in a sense. He won, of course, the Century, started his year in Hawaii, wins there. And he doesn't necessarily have a bad year, but just maybe not up to his standards in terms of just week in, week out performances, not a ton of in the way of top 10s or top 5s or things like that. But then in his final 3 starts of 2025, he has a T7 at the Genesis Championship, a T5, the Dunlop Phoenix Tournament, and then he wins the Hero World Challenge. And so now he's coming back to a place here at the Sony where he won 2022 and obviously enjoyed starting his year in Hawaii last year. So that's one name that intrigues me. The second name, you mentioned Steven Jaeger being in contention last year, another guy that people kind of forget. This kind of kicked off the year of JJ Spawn. He was in the mix there coming down the finish, and he's played good here in Hawaii before. In fact, I think it was maybe 2 or 3 years ago now where he had the famous untucked Puma shirt at the Century the week prior and wore that. And this was a guy obviously goes on later this year to win the U.S. Open, but this was, I think, for us when he started kind of landing on our radar. I'm like, okay, JJ's playing some good golf right now. Maybe he'll kind of make some noise this year, and he goes on to do that. The third name that I find interesting is Collin Morikawa, who has struggled mightily with the putter, but has gone to this center shafted, this zero torque model. I mean, he's tried a little bit of everything last year. And we talked about, he tried a lot of caddies last year. He tried a lot of putters last year. He tried taking off his glove for approach shots at one point in time. So he was trying everything. And I just wonder your thoughts on those 3 guys, because I think this could be a tone setter for each of those 3 in very different ways leading into a year. And I think it's a very important year for all 3 of those guys.
I think a more important year for Collin Morikawa, if I'm deciding between any of those 3 guys, this is honestly, Collin Morikawa should play this golf course every year. It's a perfect course for him. Accuracy is so rewarded if you're a player that finds a fairway more often than not. He's a guy that will hit 70% of his fairways week in and week out on a course that averages about half. So you feel like you had a good day if you hit more than 7 fairways in the round. But you're right. I think Colin just needs more consistency this year. Try to keep the same routines, keep those processes the same. But yeah, I'm looking for a big bounce back week and year for Colin Morikawa. Expect him to have a good week. Hideki Matsuyama, I thought was interesting year that he never really showed that. Besides, I mean, gosh, he won twice, but besides those moments, it felt like he never was in contention.
Yeah.
He was really good at finishing between 10th and 20th. I think I've found that out on air at Hero. I'm sitting there doing some research, and I find that, hey, Terry, how many times has he finished between 10th and 20th? He's like, I don't know. How many? He's like, I'm like 12. Like that's for me. I would have been in love with those finishes, but
not a bad year, but just not at maybe Hideki's standard, which was kind of intriguing for us to recap.
Definitely. It's all about getting back to precision iron play for Hideki. He feeds off of that. You know, if he's dialed in with that part of his game, and you saw it on the 18th hole at the Hero Championship in the playoff where he just sent one right at the flag stick, wins with a birdie, takes down Alex Noren. That's the type of Hideki that we're used to and saw in his prime, where he was just flagging iron shots left and right. But you want to see a healthier Hideki this year. I think that's first and foremost. If he's not showing that he's injured quite as much, I think that would be a good start for Hideki. But he's a scary player when you're coming down the stretch if you see his name on the leaderboard, because you know that he is not fearful at all coming down the stretch, and he is not scared to go take it deep on a Sunday, winning on 2 come from behind victories at the Genesis. I guess he did that the year prior, but Genesis being the one where he started about 4 back from Cantley, ended up that thing was a snoozer with about an hour left.
That was a Charlie to Smylie text. We're on the 15th hole. Ready to start recording? This thing's over.
Crazy. But a good story about JJ Spawn at Sony Open. So him and I got paired together. It's probably back in 18 or 19, and JJ didn't play very good, but I just remember thinking, like, JJ's so good, and if he just wasn't Eeyore out there, it wasn't just so upset with himself that he could take his game to the next level one day. But I'll never forget too that a lot of times guys are showing up with something new that week, whether it's a new club, new technique. And for me, the new technique was a claw saw grip that I showed up with. I had maybe used it for 2 weeks coming into it, never used a saw grip ever in my entire life. But I kind of noticed some things I liked at home. I'm like, oh, this could really work. You know, it's not windy. And that first morning, him and I were, I think, probably first or second off. We were on the 10th hole, and it is blowing 30 miles an hour. And we both hit it down the fairway, and I chipped something up there just short of the green. And I have about 30 feet from the fringe. And when you think about a putt that's off of the fringe, sometimes you feel like you got to hit it a little harder, but also the wind is howling back into me. And I have this saw grip, and I'm thinking, how do I even get this club started right now and not miss the ball? I was legitimately worried about contact. Like, don't chunk it, don't top it. And I think I left this 30-footer 15 feet short. It was the worst putt I've ever hit in my PGA Tour career. And by the end of the day, I was back to a traditional grip. It was atrocious putting in the first 9 holes.
Any reaction at all from JJ to that putt? Or was it just, I don't want to make eye contact with this guy right now?
I don't even know if he would remember it at all, but it still was a putt that I was thinking, man, I probably should have given this saw grip a little bit more reps. It could feel great in your prep and on these Wednesday pro. And he's like, yeah, I made everything. And then you get out there that morning and you kind of got a little tournament nerves going. And next thing you know, you're like, I haven't played in 30-mile-an-hour winds yet. How is this going to work? Which is feeling I have one hand on the club. You know, I've had 2 on the putter for my entire life.
Yeah, it's so interesting too. Just talking about JJ's talent relative to the things that held him back. You know, now he's a major champion, and you know his iron play from 180 to 200 yards is just, you know, some of the best on earth. And it's funny even thinking back to some of these last few episodes we've done previewing the year and the guys we've talked about, where it just seems so simple. You know, it's guys like Rico Hoey. If he could just figure out the putting, you know, he'd be fantastic. And talking
if
to
it
James
was only
Nitty,
so easy.
Yeah, Pearson Cooney, like, you know, his talent is off the charts, but if he could just be less hard on himself. And it seems simple when you say it out loud, but really and truly, I think for a lot of these guys, it's interesting to look at. They have everything they need right there. And how do you just figure out the minute small, sometimes obvious change you need to unlock it, and then you go on to win a U.S. Open at Oakmont in insanely difficult conditions and kickstart the rest of your career. I just, nothing there other than just like what a fun, silly game we've chosen to play and love, Smylie.
Yeah, you ain't kidding. You ain't kidding. But there's nothing better than being in Hawaii for that. Now the first event of the year. It's gonna be sad to not start your year here in Hawaii. What an incredible place. I'm excited to be there for the last one, potentially, and hopefully we get a great champion.
That's sad. I mean, to think of, it's the last year of the Jingle Bell, right? I mean, the last year of the Jingle Bell.
That's right.
And the last year of the Sony. It's just so tough. With that, Smylie, we're going to kind of hard turn in a different direction. We thought we were done talking about the 2025 Ryder Cup at Bethpage Black. We are not, because Jon Rahm joined Golf Subpar on Wednesday, January the 7th. Colton Ose and Drew Stoltz had him on, did a great job covering a number of different subjects. It's worth going to their Subpar YouTube channel, watching that full episode. But they asked Jon about the Ryder Cup environment, and he had sort of a wide-ranging answer, funny at times, talking about some of the abuse that he and Seb Straka and Tyrrell Hatton took, not only for being overweight, but for having receding hairlines. But there's one section that we've talked a little bit about this on the show. I wanted to play this section, some of Rahm's thoughts for you, and then react to that in the back end.
It's not so much what was being said. Of course, you get the usual ones that will say something about your wife and your kids, which
that's way over the line.
Yeah, but
I know. I just don't like
expected. But yeah, it's over the line. It was more the fact that from the second we got to the range, it started until we left the golf course. It was 10 to 12 hours. It's just nonstop. And I know other athletes hear it as well. Like if the Lakers are going to Boston, they're going to hear it, right? And anybody that goes to Philly hears it as well, right? But if you're on the 50-yard line, you don't hear anything.
Yeah.
In our case, every single second you hear it. And the other thing that I wasn't ready for, if you see the opening tee shot that I hit 400 yards right, I wasn't ready for it to keep going as we were taking the club back. We hit a lot of shots with them still talking, and that was the part that was something we had to adjust to. Like that first hole, I told Tyrrell on the green, I was like, well, I guess that's what we have. We're not going to hit a shot all day or all tournament without it being rowdy.
Smylie, I have thoughts. I have lots of thoughts. I'll pass over to you first. Just reflect on the specifics of what Jon's talking about there, of not just the audience, not just the crowd being rowdy, but the timing of the rowdiness.
Yes, it's not good. Not good at all. And a player should have their right to their routine to be able to pull off the shot. And too often you saw guys having to back off. And I think the most notable back off was when Rory McIlroy did it on the 16th hole and basically told these guys, you know what, shut up. And proceeds to get up there and then still hit it to 5 feet. And if Tommy Fleetwood reminded Rory that it was not a tap in, he still had to putt it, which I thought was one of the funniest sound bites from that interview of all the guys after they had won that week. But yes, they have a right to play the shot. It's a shame that, you'd like for there to be some type of home advantage in a playful way. Like when I was over in Rome, feeling the difference between the two crowds, and just it was more playful over there in Europe. And I thought going to Ryder Cup at Bethpage in New York, I was hyping up in my own head, thinking that it was going to exceed what I experienced at the Ryder Cup in Rome. And I left Bethpage thinking, man, I never thought in a million years that I was going to have the Ryder Cup at Rome higher on the list as a spectator for me, just being on the ground, seeing everything, than Bethpage. It was so much more fun with all the singing of the crowd and how they interacted with, whether it be the Team Europe, but also, they give the USA guys a hard time, but with the hat situation with Cantlay, and I wasn't ever with Pat's group to know how bad it got with him. And I'm sure that those guys will say, hey, it happens to us too. And they've been super vocal about it. And I wasn't with enough groups that had enough issues, it felt like to me. I was close enough to be able to hear, many of the jives and stuff walking off greens. But I think a lot of it was geared towards Rory. I'm sure Rahm had a lot, but I think certain players probably got a lot of it. And then some of the other guys maybe had a little less, but still you'd like for it to be playful in manner, nothing that's ever going to be thrown at your family.
Yeah, I think it's so interesting to me the way that the type of fallout there's been from what happened at Bethpage. I think you just said it very well there. Of this is an event we were all super excited for. At one of the venues in America that feels truly like our home course. There aren't many that are public in the way that Bethpage is public, the People's sort of country club, and feeling like this could be a really cool opportunity for us to do something cool on home soil and also have it in a place with an environment that's going to be like unlike anything you've ever seen for a Ryder Cup. And I left the week feeling pretty bad about the way the whole thing went. It's interesting on the PGA of America side too, just you had Derek Sprague, who offered that apology to Rory and Erica in the wake of everything that happened with those two. He subsequently stepped down. I'm not saying it's connected to what happened at the Ryder Cup. He wants to spend more time with family, but just the timing of that in the wake of what happened is interesting. We heard on the TGL broadcast that Keegan Bradley and Rory McIlroy had a little sit-down conversation about the way things went, and Rory expressing his specific type of frustrations about the way the crowd was handled. I just think for me, it boils down to, and this is, look, we're trying to be impartial here. You have relationships with guys on tour. We are Americans, and I'm sitting there and I want America to win. And I was flatly embarrassed with the behavior of those fans. And I've not been to a Ryder Cup in Europe. Of course, take you at your word of just I've been to matches, Premier League matches in Europe, and there is sort of a cheekiness about the way you follow the game, you sing about the game, and all these sorts of things. It's a little more fun than what you see in American sports. But I just felt like I think it all connects to me back to the fallacy of growing the game, of just this turn of phrase we've used the past few years of like, we want to grow the game, we're going to grow the game. It feels like it's being done with no real responsibility for how the game is being grown. There's a lot of golf represents a very soulful thing to a lot of different people. And the way you go about playing the game, respecting your fellow competitor is just as important as getting that ball in the hole in as few strokes as you possibly can. And that, I think, is completely lost on a lot of newcomers to the game who just don't know how to act or behave. And you get all these people coming out and creating this environment that's just like, I get that you might want to support America and you want to drink a zillion beers. And look, two guys on this podcast here who have drank a zillion beers in their day, right? I'm not begrudging you for that. I'm just saying, if you're going to go out there, have respect for what the game is and what the competition is. And that, I think, was completely lost that week. And I think, for Rom to be able to come on and talk about it the fashion he did and say, we leaned into it, we used it as fuel, good on them for riding that out and doing it in the way they did. Because I just think, and I'm sure even American players didn't enjoy what was happening around them. I saw the discomfort firsthand, and like the group with it was walking with Rory and Shane when they played the match against JT and Cam Young. That was a very uncomfortable watch.
It's the responsibility of players in that group for the home team to acknowledge what's happening with the crowd and step in. Justin Thomas, I think, has done a great job of noticing when it's too much and try to get guys in the crowd to quiet down. Hey, give them a chance to go through their routine. Stop. This is too much. And I think more players should probably step in and do some of that. And even the captains for the home team. I can't remember Keegan doing a whole lot of that. Not to say that I had a camera on him the whole time to be able to see how often it did or did not happen. But I thought Rory said, this was recently, that Keegan may have had the platform to have been able to say something after one of the days, whether it be Friday or Saturday, to maybe get the crowds to be a little friendlier to the players. And I think Rom actually kind of said it best about how it's not like being on the 50-yard line. Like, these guys are very, very close. And that's one sport where you really can get close. Maybe besides courtside seats at a basketball game, probably basketball would be the closest that you can get to these guys. But and by
the way, in basketball, how many times have we seen, with much greater frequency than what you see in professional golf, a LeBron or another star point at someone and say, hey, get him out of there? Yeah. Much higher frequency. And that's in an arena with 20,000, 30,000 people that are adding to all that sound. And you're focused on playing a game that's fast, quick decisions, not a game where you're except at the free throw line, maybe standing over a non-moving object and thinking about the way you're going to hit it to a target, hundreds of yards away, and need to hit a very specific, size of the green. I mean, like it's just, I think that's the respect that's lost there too. It's just like, I don't want to see this person succeed. I'm going to yell in their backswing. I don't care. It's
that's not good. That's terrible. None of that. No player should ever stand for that. But I will say my ears are going to be more perked up at Adair Manor to see how the fans are over there, just to make sure that, all right, am I seeing this both ways? Like, is this fair? Should the American guys actually have a point to make about maybe how they're being treated over there as well? But I didn't notice anything in Rome, but I also got my plugs in, and I'm there's a lot going on.
Yeah. Maybe I'll go undercover at Adair Manor, just really kind of bed myself in with the Irish, the troublemakers over there. I don't want to go so far as to say hooligans. I'm just going to try to get amongst it. Just really.
I think you should just be an Aussie for the week.
I could get behind that. Just show up in like full President's Cup regalia. Like, what are you doing here? It's like the person who wears the jersey.
It's like, do we not have any Aussies on the team?
Where's Jason Day? Has anyone seen Jason Day around here?
Yeah, he's on 4. Yeah, go check him
out. Well, with that, this is a semi-connected segue. Smylie, of course, talking to John Rahm of Legion 13 on LIV, and there has been some new. It's been a very interesting offseason for LIV, Smylie. Some reports about players who ultimately did not go to LIV, and the most recent piece of breaking news is that Tom Kershaw of the Times reporting that Thomas Dietrich and Elvis Smylie are going to join LIV. But I know Smylie headed to LIV. It's a real shame. It's a real shame. Yeah. Although I guess it's because he's going to join the Aussie team. Ripper. He would have been a great clique for you to have a Smylie on the cliques. Would have been nice for you. But I think also just as important news is that Akshay Bhatia was offered a chance to join that league and turned it down. And then I guess in connection to team golf is going to be joining Tiger Woods' Jupiter Links team as Tiger is out for a period of time on that TGL circuit. So
at this point, who hasn't been offered? Should we just, where's the running like non-offer list that we can follow? That's the storyline.
It really and truly, I mean, I think, there are the ones that get reported. I mean, I guess you assume where there's smoke, there's fire, but that doesn't necessarily have to mean that the player or the is entertaining it as much as like, hey, it behooves the league to report that, I'm not saying that Siwoo Kim or Sung Jae Im entertained it, but like those are the rumors this offseason. And it's nice for the league to be connected to good players who are high enough up in the official world golf ranking to where they'd lift the potential rating of those fields in an attempt to get OWGR points. So this is something. I think Dietrich's 57th in the OWGR, and last I saw, I believe Elvis Smylie was on the 120s, maybe 127. So it's something for them. I mean,
what's the strategy,
is this moving the needle for you at all?
They're clearly going more global with their players, and even having less events happening in the United States for LIV Golf. You just see that seems to be the strategy that seems to be working for LIV Golf, is to play around the world. And so it all kind of connects back to the DP World Tour to me, with what's going to happen with all these fines and John Rahm and Hatton and all these players that will potentially be not playing in any more Ryder Cups, and that's going to be something we're going to continue to follow. But for these two guys that are going over to LIV, Dietrich's the more surprising one to me. Dietrich was in all the signature events next year, so
yeah,
he had to have gotten a really nice offer to be able to go, because he's really betting on himself in that 1 year. He plays well in the majors, because as soon as this year is over, I imagine that OWGR is going to tank. So he's got to play well in the majors this year, or he's back to not being a player who's at the major championships. And maybe for Thomas, getting back with his buddy Thomas Peters, who he played college golf with at Illinois, maybe he's like, dude, I don't like the PGA Tour. I don't like playing on the PGA. And maybe that's the case. I don't know. Because it's hard for me to fathom why you would make the jump now and not next year potentially, or the year after, just to see how you play in the signature events, to see if, hey, what if I go win 2 or 3 signature events next year? What does that do to my career? where you're potentially in the majors for a couple of years. So everybody's in a different spot, but to me, that was an interesting jump and one we haven't seen a player make at this point, because it's such a big benchmark to be in the signature events.
It's similar to, in a way, my head scratching around Laurie Cantor going back to LIV. It's like he does all this work. He plays in the very, very original iteration of LIV.
I can almost understand that more.
Well, I can understand it in the way that you just set it up, of like, maybe he just doesn't like playing on the tour. Maybe he just wants to be in Europe. It just, the visuals on Laurie were just that he was on tour, then he goes to LIV, then he sits out, then he plays on the DP World Tour. He becomes the first player to come back and play in a tour event, play the Players Championship after playing on LIV, and he re-earns his tour card. And you're thinking, look at this. It's going to be this, from the perspective of the PGA Tour, it's this great redemptive arc. He's coming back, and then the first thing he does in the offseason is goes and signs right back to LIV. And so I think it's only confusing not understanding their motives that they may not tell you about. And to your point, it may just be that a guy like Thomas Dietrich, a guy like Laurie Cantor would just rather play a more international schedule, and then pending the result of the DP World Tour appeal, play over there, play in Asia closer to home for them, and do that. I'd say I'm really curious, Smylie, is that, do you think the four aces are going to make Dietrich only wear a navy glove? Like, do you think he's going to get to change his glove color, or is that the team you went to? Franchise color? Yeah, it's reported he's going to join four aces, captained by Dustin Johnson, which will reunite him with Thomas Peters, and the fourth, I'm not sure is who is
maybe
on that
Varner.
Team. Varner got traded to Smash, which is
I don't know, man.
Huge. Yeah,
I'll say this, that for a player like Laurie, who's not in the signature events next year, if he was on the PGA Tour and only having 100 cards available, so he's got to play well to keep his card. And if he doesn't keep his card, he's right back to being in either on the DP World Tour or to the Korn Ferry Tour. So I can understand the move for Laurie, because if he doesn't have a year in which he plays himself into the top 50, he may never play for the dollar bills that these guys are playing for on the LIV Golf Tour. So from a financial standpoint, if he got an upfront fee as well to make that move, probably not a bad decision for Laurie. You can understand why he made the move. What about a young guy like Elvis Smylie? I think it's a move that is debatable for Elvis, because I think, and you're starting to see this with some young guys. I think Tom McKibben was probably the best first example. Caleb Surratt, a U.S. player, played at Tennessee, also a young player that's, they don't have status anywhere. I should say Elvis did have status in the DP World Tour, is actually starting to play very well. But it's before they really take up PGA Tour status, that seems to be the way in which they can kind of beat this system with the no suspension deal of, many of these players have had to deal with whether it be Brooks Koepka, Hudson Swafford, whoever they might be. And they're able to go make all this money. And if the OWGR thing works out, great. But I think what they're losing is potential. And if they do play well at a young age, that they're wasting some of their youth and what could be, very, very well. Like, I'm sure Tom McKibben made more money he's probably ever made in 1 year. And a lot of these players will probably look at that 3 years from now and be like, yeah, I'm in a great spot now to where if I want to go chase the tour, I can. And I think that's the biggest problem that the tour has, is that young global talent can just go over there and make a ton of money at LIV and just say, yep, all right, I'm going to go try to chase the tour, where in the past, you had these players joining at a young age, and that's kind of fun as a fan. You got these like 20-year-old from Ireland who's like, is he the next Rory McIlroy? And so you kind of lose these storylines around the world that we used to have, be an influx to the PGA Tour that no longer feels like we're getting all of that talent.
I will say, of all the young guys who made the decision to join LIV, Elvis probably makes the most sense to me, in the sense that the Australian market is clearly the one that's embraced LIV, the most warmly, right? Like that's their best event, their flagship event in many ways. He's on a team of 3 other Aussies. And so if you feel most a comfort at home in Australia. That kind of
Yeah.
kickstarted his career on the DP World Tour, winning in Australia. Like I think for him, I think it definitely limits, of course, your potential growth globally. But again, we're here trying to guess what long-term career ambitions are for these guys. And if some of them are like, hey, I can make a bunch of money and live at home in Australia and travel a little bit, but know that, my biggest event of the year is going to be a home game for me. That's not necessarily a bad thing, I think. Yeah.
All these Australian golfers, who do they've looked up to in their career? Who's the one guy that they...
Greg Norman? Well, Cam Smith, Jason Day, Adam Scott. I don't know.
Adam Scott.
I'm just naming
Scott's
Aussies
the
at this
answer.
point, man.
If
Greg
Greg Norman's the guy they're looking up to, then that honestly is why they ended up at LIV, I guess. That's the answer. But Adam Scott is what I was going for there. That's the guy that I looked up to, and I was over here in the States.
Yeah.
I imagine that, when Adam Scott won the Masters back in whenever that was and screamed Aussie, Aussie, Aussie on the 10th green with the rain falling down, I imagine that was a memory that many of these Elvis was probably 10 years old at the time. Watching that back.
That's fair. I guess I was even a little bit too young for Greg Norman, but that was like when Tiger was winning in 97 and we were kind of that sort of young age. We're swinging a golf club, playing for the first time. That was kind of the end phase of Greg Norman. We all knew who Greg Norman was. We saw the hats with the shark on and this and that. So I guess that's fair. Like if you're putting it in the context of young modern Australian players, they didn't see Greg Norman hit a single competitive golf shot while they were alive. So Adam Scott's the more of the reference.
And so what tour is Adam Scott playing on?
Yeah.
Where is he a board of director to where he's been trying endlessly to try to get the PGA Tour to be in the best possible position? Adam Scott's been on the PGA Tour. So I just think that whatever advice that Elvis got or any of these young kids got from, I guess there's only one young player on this Ripper team, so Elvis would be the guy, but it would, I don't know if Adam Scott called him or if Elvis asked for any advice, but it would have been hard to take a call with Adam Scott and say, what do you think I should do? I don't know.
Think about, I think it's even, Adam Scott might even be a little bit too old for Elvis in some ways. Like he went to Cam Smith's academy. That was a whole tie to this whole thing of like, and when they put the press release out, it's like Elvis Smylie was trained via something that Cam Smith built. So Cam Smith is probably a more modern reference for Elvis. I also think Adam is such a unique human being in just the way he's gone about his career and life, of a guy that is Australian, but lives not full-time, he lives in Switzerland, and he's got 3 kids, but he does make great time for them. But he's traveling all the time. He's on the road. He lives a very unique life. Like he's almost, in a weird way, he's like almost less Australian than the rest of the Australians on tour. And especially that contingent. It's like, we're doing the Australian continuum now. Like Cam Smith is very Australian. He is like, this guy's got a mullet and he fishes all the time. Like that's as Australian as it gets.
The Australians always used to travel together. They always were going to dinners together, playing practice rounds together. So yes, I do understand what you're saying, that they stick together, and Adam Scott maybe he's a little bit more of a lone wolf and kind of goes to the beat of his own drum and has his own plane and has done very well in his career, and maybe doesn't have as much time to pour back into the youth of Australian young golfers and telling them what the right or wrong thing to do is. But we don't know what Elvis was offered.
We don't know.
Could have been offered $5 million for all we know. And it's like, you know what? That's probably a pretty good deal for him. And that's the state of golf. Like that's the position of where we are in the state of the game, where you can't fault a kid from Australia to go play for his home team and be surrounded by 3 other really good players.
Well, Smylie, we've gone from Hawaii to Bethpage to Australia, and now we're taking it back to Mr. Hawaii, King of Hawaii.
King of the Whales. Speaker of the Whales.
Man, he's been a broadcaster who loves golf in the great state of Hawaii, who is deeply concerned about its future, at least on the professional circuit. So what we got next, we have about a 20-minute conversation that you have with Mark Rolfing on that topic. And then we're going to come back, Smylie, with some New Year's golf resolutions. So stay tuned for those, and let's get right now to a little Hawaii golf talk with Mark Rolfing.
All right, excited to welcome in Mr. Hawaii. People call him Mark Rolfing, but this guy, I mean, it feels like he knows everything in Hawaii, the king, if you will. Mark, thanks for coming on, man. I appreciate you coming on short notice as well.
Thank you very much, Smylie. That actually would be King Kamehameha more than me, Mr. Hawaii, I think, but I feel privileged that you give me that title.
All right, Mark. So give us all just a bit of an update for those that haven't been aware of what's gone on in Hawaii with the water dispute. So many people have come up and asked me about Kapalua and why the event isn't happening this year. And many people in the States and golf fans in general really just aren't aware of what has gone on with the water dispute and why this tournament is not happening this week at the Century.
Yeah, it's very disappointing for me and pretty much everybody here on Maui. We've had a tough 5 years. First we had COVID, then we had the Lahaina fire, and now we've got the worst drought in history. So 3 big elements all within 5 years. We knew that we were heading into a drought cycle early in the year last year. In fact, I told the PGA Tour at the Players Championship I was worried about it. We better start putting our eye on the ball and making sure that we didn't get ourselves into, kind of a panic situation. We went all the way till July, and in July, then all of a sudden they came out and took a look, and they had been saying everything was fine. And they pretty much decided that it was too big a risk to try and solve the water issue right away. So they canceled the tournament. Once they canceled the tournament, it kind of opened the door for a bunch of litigation, lawsuits going on. It's still hard to totally understand what is going on with it. The plantation course is getting water. The plantation course is the only one that is. In fact, the bay course is closed. It's been closed for a few months now. It looks terrible right out in front of my house here. Grass is pretty much dead, and I don't know that it'll ever come back. So how they're going to solve that problem, I'm not sure. But the real issue right now is we've got this litigation, and it's not really about water, Smylie. There's plenty of water up on the watershed. There's a watershed of 9,000 acres on the high mountain up here at 5,000 feet. It rains 200 inches a year up there. And that water is still coming down the mountain. It's just not being delivered because the delivery system that brings the water down, the trenches and all the pipes and everything is over 100 years old, and it's just run out of gas. Got destroyed in a storm about 8 years ago. And it really needs to be fixed. It needs some genuine fixing, and I don't know how that's going to get done.
Wow, that's incredible. And just thinking about the Bay course, many people that have probably listened to the show have been to Hawaii and been to Kapalua and know what an incredible piece of property not only the plantation course is, but the Bay course. It's a phenomenal layout, but it's really sad to hear that about the Bay course. I wasn't aware that the grass is dead out there and that the course has been closed. I mean, talk about just the amount of jobs and the golf course being closed and how it's affecting just the overall community and the golf community.
Yeah, it's hard for me to put a number on it, Smylie, but we're estimating right now a $50 million negative economic impact. The island is empty today. This would normally be one of the busiest days of the year. It's hard for me to kind of look at over 40 years of having this tournament, which did start on the Bay. And in fact, the Bay was always a great test of golf. We had an LPGA event at the Bay. It really was a nice course. And to be losing that for I don't know how long, it's going to be quite some time, I'm sure is really devastating for a lot of people. And, it's disappointing. This has become such a big part of our community, not just economically, but as much mentally and physically. It's the pride and joy of Maui, really.
It sure is, and it's such a beautiful place. And my family and I have had such great memories, not only when I was playing the event at Kapalua, how excited I was to be there. My family, my parents came, and ever since really I've been a part of the NBC broadcast. It's been a thrill of mine to start the year in Hawaii, and I think every player has that same feeling. And I'm just curious, Mark, at this point, have you had a chance to speak to many players that have frequently attended, whether it be the Kapalua event or a Sony event year after year, that they're sad about not being there this coming year?
Players are very sad to a man. I mean, one of the things about Kapalua, Smylie, as you know, is we have a tremendous loyalty amongst the players. Not every player came every year, but there were a lot of guys that kind of came no matter what. And I've been reading quotes from players, and I read a quote from Justin Thomas the other day where he was quoting Mark Rolfing, asked him a question 10 years ago. About whether or not he'd rather win an away Ryder Cup or win another major, and he said no choice. There's win an away Ryder Cup for sure, and he named the date that he did it. I mean, he just has such a soft spot in his heart, and so do a lot of guys here. I have talked to a number of players, mostly guys from my generation. Davis Love called me the other day. And said he thought he might play Sony if he was feeling up to it next week because he's got such great memories. And I said, why? Are you worried about not having it again? And he said, well, there's a lot of questions and not too many answers and a lot of talk about things that are going to happen. It's really strange right now. The Century folks, Smylie, just arrived on the island about an hour ago. The chairman and chief marketing officer and everybody are going to be on Mile and I tomorrow afternoon having a strategy session here to try and figure out what we can do for the future. There's going to be a charity announcement and more funds being distributed to the charities, some of which, might close up because a lot of this is the sole source of their funding. So that's potentially a problem, but they're here. The other ironic thing is Bill Coore and Ben Crawshaw are up on that course right now. They are working on that course right now. Smylie, it looks like Augusta National right now. It is green. It is lush. You could be playing golf there right now.
So what happened for us to be able to pull the plug that quickly? Was it, did you feel like that was the right decision at the time? Did you feel like they could have waited a couple weeks?
It was the only decision they had, Smylie, because there was just 5 months to go and nobody knew whether or not the water would be totally turned off. It was 75% turned off at that point. And I just don't think the tour could take the chance. It would have been a big, big chance. It turned out there's been a little rain since then. It's still very, very dry. But it was certainly a decision that was made quickly, and it was a tough one for them to make. And Century so much wants to still be on the schedule. They've got a contract through 2035. They've got 8 more years left on the contract. This is the 8th year of their deal, and they're desperately wanting to try to figure something out. So hopefully tomorrow afternoon we do that.
Well, Century, they bring everybody from that town in Wisconsin all the way to Hawaii, and they really do pour back into the community. And they really, for all the meetings that we have, production meetings, the beginning of the week, Century really has the most people there. They talk about all of the events and all the economic impact and how they're pouring into the community. So I definitely believe you in that, and great that they are there, even though that event isn't going on. But I think with the schedule scarcity that we're potentially talking about in the future, Mark, with, the rumor of it going to 20 or so events and starting after the Super Bowl, that leaves a kind of a hole in that January calendar where we typically kicked off the PGA Tour season. I imagine that's kind of the conversation with Davis Love that you may have had and many other players. And I'm sure you'd love to get in front of Roll-App and those guys to be able to make your pitch of why Hawaii needs to be on the schedule.
Yeah, I think so. The governor and the mayor and I are having a conversation on Thursday, Smylie, with Mark Steinberg to talk about Tiger and the committee and really what the future is. If you take a look at what's happened in the last 5 years with the schedule, to forget the fire and COVID and the drought and all that, if you think about the Middle East and what has happened there, there's 3 big events in January that weren't there before. They were there, but they weren't great events that were attracting McIlroy and Fleetwood and all those guys. So that is a new thing. The NFL playoffs in general have expanded so much. They're earlier. There are more of them. There's more games every day. The playoffs are a big factor now. TGL was not a factor before. All of a sudden, you got an indoor golf league that's going to have more teams next year. That's all going on in January. And when you have those components that are involved, I take a look at the West Coast and the West Coast swing, which I love to death. I think there's problems there. I don't think you're going to see as many West Coast events no matter what happens with the schedule. There's going to be less West Coast events.
Oh gosh, which so many players love being on that West Coast. They don't want to skip an event. So many players, when they get back to the East Coast, are burnt out already at the beginning of the year because they played so much. But let's get over to the Sony Open, because next week, obviously, we get the season started at Waialae Country Club, and I'm curious, what your expectations are, whether Sony will be sticking around if the Century happen to go away.
Well, I'm worried about it. I'm really worried about it. There's no contract signed for the 2027 event yet. First time I can remember that Sony hadn't re-signed before the tournament happened, the last one of the contract. I think they're in the same boat as this one right here. Too many tournaments right now and not enough space. It's an interesting situation. It is now the season opening event. It's a hard place to have a season opening event because there's not a lot of other courses around. There's not a lot of practice facilities there. It's a wonderful course. Everybody loves Waialae and they like the course, but there's just no facilities for practice and for warming up for the new event of the season. So having said that, Smylie, we are looking at a number of different options, including, do we have to play in January here? I'm pretty convinced that Brian Rolap and crew are thinking, why would we bother going against the NFL playoffs? It hasn't worked. Our ratings are going down. It's just, it's an immovable force. And is there another time or other times of the year where you could potentially play in Hawaii? I truly believe we have to be in Hawaii for the PGA Tour going forward. It cannot be an option to not have Hawaii with a place on that schedule, because globally it's just too important. It's too important to the world economy, and it's too important to the game. And whether we play here in the summertime, late, let's say, or fall, or winter, who knows? We used to play the Kapalua International in November every year, and it worked out just fine.
Is there certain months out of the calendar in Hawaii where you would say it would not be a good time of the year for somebody who's only really been there in January?
The first week in January would not be a good time because of all the reasons I told you. TGL, the Middle East, the NFL playoffs. That's not a good time anymore. It used to be.
So you're a proponent to get it out of January anyways.
Move it. I say let's move it and feel good about it, and I think there'll be a way to do it.
Interesting. Is there besides, you mentioned November, but is there any other month when you look at the potential calendar moving forward as a potential slot? I mean, do you feel like it needs to be connected to the West Coast still? It feels that way as a player. If I was making my schedule going from anywhere other than the West Coast to Hawaii, right?
Yeah, I'm kind of with you, although they've all got their jets and everything else these days. Things are a little different traveling than when I was, and even when you were. I love the fall here. I always have. The LPGA event that we had was in October here. I love that time of year here. Look, I don't think the time of year really matters here. People are coming all the time here. It's just you really want to come during the NFL playoffs and all that other stuff if you had some alternatives. And the alternatives haven't really been put in front of everybody quite yet. Century's, been mulling over a few. But I think in the next week or so, we're going to start seeing some real possibilities unfold here and what might be doable.
Mm-hmm. Well, let's end on a high note here, Mark, because we talked a lot about just all of the economic impacts of potentially the Century and the Sony happening or not happening. But let's talk about the good. Let's talk about your favorite memories from either Kapalua or Sony. Let's start with Kapalua. What's your favorite event, or favorite shot and favorite moment of that event?
Geez, I got two. I got Freddie Couples' hole-in-one that he made, which was his first hole-in-one ever. He just went nuts. I couldn't even believe he'd never made a hole-in-one. So that was great. But I will never forget January of 2000, which was the first event of the new century. And I don't mean Sentry, Century. I mean Century with a U. So this is the first event of the new century. Two guys are tied for the lead, Tiger and Ernie, on the last hole. Ernie makes an eagle. He's tied for the lead, makes an eagle, and loses. It was literally one of the great finishes we will ever see in the entire century, and it was the first one of it. So that one I always remember, and that's I knew at that point how good Tiger was. We knew before that, but I think Ernie for the first time really realized, how am I going to beat this guy?
What about the Sony Open? Favorite memories?
Oh, geez. I don't know. Aoki's shot was a great one. There have been so many great Sony Opens. It's interesting, that course, in the early days when I played over there in the Hawaiian Open, it was much easier than Kapalua. And everybody thought it was a big putting contest at Sony, and it's turned into a course where you really have to drive the ball. You got to hit a lot of great iron shots. The scores are much higher than they are at Kapalua. And all in all, it's just got a real friendly, feel-good atmosphere. I would have loved to have seen it back in the 20s and 30s when it was all along the beach there in kind of a beachfront course where you went in the beach, actually. In kayak.
I'm very familiar with that beach. Absolutely. Going on that kayak back in 2017, I believe it was. Okay, so Corey Crenshaw or Kapalua, what exactly are they doing?
Well, we've did some tweaking over the years. We did a major renovation back, a $20 million renovation in 2019, and redid the grass and a number of different things. But we've just gotten to the point now where there's too much turf there. There's too much maintained turf. It's a big site. Fairways were 80, 90 yards wide, as you know. The site itself is almost 400 acres. So we're taking a real good hard look at how to reduce the amount of maintained turf. It's interesting. After we built the plantation course, the next course that Corey Crenshaw and I did together was actually Sand Hills, which so we went from 423 acres, I think it is, to I'm not sure it was about 70 maintained acres at Sand Hills. It cost us less than $1 million to build a top 10 course in the world. And I believe that, being minimal and taking a look at how we can control the amount of water that goes on, regardless of whether there's a drought or not, is the future for us. And so Ben and Bill are taking a real hard look at that in the next couple of days.
Okay, so mainly looking at that turf control, but also, is there any tweaks to the golf course they're looking at potentially to make it either a little bit more challenging, or is there anything that you are looking at there?
Yeah, I mean, all you got to do is change the fifth hole to a par 4. I've never liked a par 73 anyway. It doesn't have any relevance to other scores at other courses or even the old Bay course. I'm sorry. And the fifth hole has a stroke average of 4.1. In fact, it was 3.9 as a par 5 not too long ago. So all you got to do is take a pencil, cross out the 5, put a 4 in the little thing, and then you don't have to change anything other than the scorecard. And I think that would start out by helping.
We've had some light winds the last couple of years, and those guys have just taken it deep. I think recently Justin Thomas and I were actually talking about Kapalua, and he said, yeah, one of the first years I played there, the wind was blowing so hard. I think 12 under one. It's hard to believe if you just recently played in the last couple of years, because the wind was down and the golf course played easy. But when it gets firm and that wind gets blowing, you're like, oh, I see it now. I can see how this place could be very difficult.
Yeah, it's interesting. When we did the renovation in 2019, part of what we had to do was make the course harder for the professionals, but easier for the average players. So a lot of the work was done on the green, but it kind of backfired in a little bit of a way because it has been no wind for the last 4 years. And so we created these firmer, faster areas around the greens, short of the greens, places like that really haven't played the way they did in the early days. I want to see this thing back to where it was when it was playing real bouncy and there wasn't much space, and it required a little more shot making than it does now.
Well, I hope we get back there, Mark, because it's a special place. It's actually, if you look here, I think on my phone background. I still will never understand why this tree got cut down, but it was on the 7th hole. I don't know if you can see in there, but it was one of my most favorite trees I've ever seen on a golf course. Just absolutely beautiful. Hung over that right side. It was actually, for a hole that was kind of a blind tee shot, a nice reference point of where you needed to hit that tee ball. But then I get there a couple years ago and that tree's gone. I'm like, oh no, like this is the best tree in the world.
I know. I that one and the one at Augusta National, which actually isn't even on the course. It's interesting. That tree was a little bit far to the right for me. My landing area in
You're
the
aiming
fairway
left.
was just left that tree. But there are guys that weren't paying any attention to it the last few years. So I do miss that one, though. You're right.
Yeah, but I had a bit of a right miss, so I pretty much knew, okay, if I was on the middle of that tree, we need to hit another golf ball. But if I'm left of it, I'm good. All right, Mark. Well, I appreciate you getting us up to date on all that's going on in Hawaii. Look forward to seeing you, of course, at the Sony Open, where we kick off the 2026 PGA Tour season. So looking forward to a great week. And, of course, looking forward to being on the call with you, my man.
You got it, man.
Well, we appreciate Mark Rolfing taking the time to join, talk Hawaii golf course architecture. That was a part of the interview where my ears perked up. We started talking about Core Crenshaw, talk about sand hills. I also get this. This is a weird comp, and I don't know if it's right at all. But he almost, in some ways, feels like golf's Bill Walton to me. Like he just has this sort of unique way about him and this unique voice, and he's a Hawaii guy. I just big wave Rolfie. I don't know. I my hit rate on comps on the show is not necessarily high, at least by your judgment standards, but it's one I'm working on. Working on that one.
I don't know if I'll go quite that far, but yeah, thanks to Rolf. That was it's just stinks. I hope that somehow the PGA Tour ends up back in Hawaii. It doesn't feel like it will, so we'll see what happens.
Okay, well, Smylie, that brings us to, it is officially the year 2026. What do people do in the new year? They make resolutions. What do golfers do in the new year? They make golf resolutions. So we've been through a lot on the show. I mean, we've seen the high yaws, we've seen the wedge shanks, we have seen it all. And I want to know, let's begin with you, Smylie. What are your golf resolutions this year?
Oh,
that's a great sound effect to start with.
Where do I start? Gosh,
man,
I desperately want to have a good ball striking year, desperately, and I think I've been trending towards not having to chase golf swing and feeling like it's getting closer to where I can just show up and the motion that I have is going to somewhat match the ball flight and just more focus on rhythm and simplifying the game and playing less shots, simplifying to certain windows and trajectories. And I think the last part of this that I would say would be the resolution is that I hope that it'll help with my just overall mental part of the game, which is the part where you're like, okay, I have all these swing thoughts. Next thing you know, you're like standing on the tee. You're in your own head. And I want to be not in my own head. I want to be on the golf course having fun and enjoying myself because it doesn't matter anymore. And so I just want to have that freedom to go out there and feel like I can play shots, have fun. I know I'm going to miss hit shots. I know I'm going to hit bad shots, but I want to hit more good shots than bad shots. And I think I've been trending that way, but I want to get rid of one last thing, which is a slight little flinchy in my chipping. Just a little flinch, just a little flinchy. It's not bad, but it's not good. And I need to figure out what that little bitty tiny is. And I need to find out where the bottom is. I think that's something I'm thinking about.
Can I tell you before I do mine? I watched a video. I think it was like an old video because it was like Tiger wasn't wearing his Sunday Red stuff, so it must have been a Bridgestone shoot with Tiger and Freddie Couples a few years ago, and he was talking about like the way he hits, like the way he like draws or cuts wedges inside 50 yards.
Yeah.
And, he's like, if I want to draw it, I kind of leave the face a little bit open and I stand a little bit further away from it. And I kind of close it through impact. And then if I want to cut it, I actually keep the face closed and I stand closer to it and I kind of hold my hands through it. Right. So I popped out to do some errands today and I had the clubs in the trunk. I'm going to go over to Hope Valley. I probably shanked eight chips in a row.
Like shank?
It was
shank?
I mean, I was just straight right up, and I'm not the world's best chipper, but my short game, especially since we put the green in the backyard, it's a very above average. Like I don't lack confidence around the green. I don't get nervous around the green. But I was like, I'm just try this out, and this guy like once stalled down for me must have thought like, what the heck is this guy doing? Like after the 8th one in a row, I took the wedge and just javeled it into the ground off the turf and watched it bounce away. I'm like, all right, we're not trying that anymore. We're starting over. And fresh cleanse. And then I hit like 5 in a row in the net, 20, just going back to normal chipping. But I was like, oh yeah, let's not just try to do something new with the short game based on the YouTube video you saw. Tough scene. Anyway, this leads me to my set of resolutions. Okay. And I'm inspired largely in this regard by I love just referring back to the Scotty Scheffler Open Championship press conference of just we don't need goals, all right? We need processes. We need to refine our processes. We need to commit to just working on adding new things to your schedule, committing to focus, being focused within those. And we're not going to worry about a result. We're going to worry about a process. So the first one, which I've already proud of myself, I've stuck to it since the new year turn, is I need a much more consistent workout mobility program. All right. Like I'm not getting any younger and I don't care what positions look good on a swing. If I can't get to them because I haven't been doing my band work, my stretching, I haven't been working out a couple times a week, it doesn't matter. So that's the first one. All right. We're all over that thus far this year. Been up at like 5:30 in the morning, just, it's good. It's really good. So that's one. The second one is, as dads, right? We don't have a ton of time to play. We just like to show and go. I need to carve out time for one range session a week that's specific, focused practice. We're trying to work on one thing. We're not like warming up. We're not just hitting balls for the sake of hitting balls. We're going to try to do one thing and we're going to try to work on it. And it's going to be a very specific focused process. Okay.
All right. So when are you going to say in all this that you're trying to hit 190 ball speed? Because I'm ready for that. We're going to get there?
That's not a process. That's a goal, Smylie. That's a number. we might get to 190 ball speed through the workout mobility program, but we're not going to worry about the number. We're going to worry about the process. And then I have twice a week when I'm kind of going through my work process, I'm going to take a break. I'm going to go in the backyard. And I'm going to chip and putt. I've got some nets out that are a little further back. So I got the short chips. I got the sort of longer wedges. I got the foam balls. We're going to do kind of a varied session with all sorts of creative short game work. I have one family golf activity per week. Okay. Either the entire family going out in the backyard to chip and putt, or we're going to go play a family 9 holes, get in the cart, play music, things like that. Trying to remind myself the game's fun.
Dad, I'm tired of this. Shut up. You're going to do it whether you like it or not. I'm tired of this, Grandpa.
And then my last one is we must play smarter golf. We have to play smarter golf. And I have a subtext playing the hole backwards. All right, we don't just go up to the tee to say we have room to hit this club. It's like, why are we hitting this club? And how long are we trying to hit it? And what club does that leave us in? And what angle we want to approach it from? We're going to play smarter golf. And actually, forget everything I said about like process, because there is one goal. We got to win something this year.
Okay.
Win something this year.
That's fair.
It's been too long. It's been a long trophy drought here at Hope Valley. I think the last thing I won was maybe the Mashburn in 2022. It's been way too long. I guess I won a flight that year. Remember, guess, but we need to win. We need to bring some hardware home. I take that back. We won men's league trophies 2 years in a row, but I need to win something individual or with a partner in a tournament this year. That has to happen. We got to win something.
Actually, I wouldn't mind posting a competitive score this year. I would post a number, sign my name to it.
So like a mini tour?
No, absolutely
like a Shoal Creek tournament?
Yeah, maybe like a club championship at Shoal or
Club
something.
championship.
Yeah.
Is Shoal even going to be open? Maybe Vestavia?
No, not doing Vestavia. Yeah, maybe Shoal. It'll be open in October, so maybe they'll do something later in the year. We'll see.
Okay.
Or
I
a mini
like
tour
that.
event. Shoot, that'd be wild.
Mini tour event, they'd let us.
I don't want to
go
play
take
3
cameras
days
out there. I tell you what, I
need to play like an 18 holer. Just
with the breakfast ball. I was watching our spyglass video the other night of like with the 8th hole when I was trying to give you a landing spot in the green. Just thinking about what a woeful caddy I'd be for a mini tour event. Just got a good kick out of that. Good laugh.
Charlie,
out of that.
shut up. Just stop. Stop talking.
I'm just up at the green. I'm like, was that helpful? You turn to the camera. That was not helpful at all. Oh man. Well, those are our resolutions, Smylie. And this was our first episode on Golf Channel. And by golly, I can't wait. Keep it going, buddy. How do we feel about it? Final thoughts?
It's good, man. Yeah. I think first time caller, long time listener, felt like just hopping right back on a bike,
I love it. That's about as good as I can put it. We are, of course, thrilled that you joined us here on Golf Channel or on YouTube or on Sports Good. However you're watching us, we appreciate you. And we'll be right back here very soon to talk to you again on The Smylie Show.
I listen to this podcast. It's really cool. And
all of our local fans and subscribers, but make sure you like and subscribe.
it's cool to see what you guys are doing. I know golf fans appreciate it, but we do too. So please keep it up.
For all the good people at YouTube, like and subscribe.
You guys have some good takes, so I'm happy to come on and shoot the